That's right. And our guests, first of all, they need no introduction, especially by me. But our guests are here, Virgil Walker and Sam Sey. First, let me tell you a little bit about Sam Sey. So he is the author on the blog Slow to Write, and he has written many articles regarding theology and culture and things of that nature. Very honored to have you on for the first time, Sam. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well, thank you. I'm truly honored to be with you guys, so thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. And then, of course, Virgil, you've been on our show. I don't even know how many times at this point. But Virgil is the host of Just Thinking podcast, also host for G3's podcast, has done an incredible amount of work as far as writing articles and appearing on television shows and things of that nature as well. So, Virgil, thank you so much for being on the show as well, my friend.
Hey, fellas, thanks for having me. It's an honor to be with you guys, and I'm excited to have a conversation with my brother Samuel Sey.
Yeah, that's actually a perfect introduction to our mission that is shown right here on the T-shirt that I'm wearing. Bros over foes. These guys are not foes. These guys are bros, and it's going to show through this discussion today. So why don't we just take a moment? We'll start with you, Virgil. Why don't you just spend the next 5-10 minutes and describe your view on abortion and describe what abolition is for people who don't know it. And then when you're done, we'll kick it over to Sam, and you could do the same thing about your position.
Yeah. Well, I probably won't cover all the ground. I want to start by saying Sam and I go way, way back to times when people, didn't have me on their radar screen per se, and perhaps didn't have Sam on their radar screen. We were behind the scenes having conversations with one another, encouraging one another, and the like. So this is a dear brother of mine, friend. He calls me uncle like I'm really old, but I understand it's a term of endearment, and so I just I take it for what it is. Go ahead, Sam.
Sorry to interrupt, but that's one of the first things we're going to disagree with. You are old. There's no debate about that. That is the case. So I'm teasing. Sorry. Go ahead.
But as it pertains to abolition, I think maybe coming into an explanation of what it is and what what the ideas are surrounding it. It's just the complete and total abolishing of human abortion. It's the idea that we want an end to the child sacrifice that's happening in our nation. And truth be told, I think one of the best ways to kind of qualify it is simply to state that most abolitionists actually advocate for equal protection under the law, the equal protection of a child in the womb receiving the kind of protection that any individual, any human being outside of the womb would receive from a standpoint of the issue of murder. There are laws against murder, and as a result, those laws are adjudicated as a part of the legal process. And we should do the exact same thing as it relates to abortion. If we believe truly that a human being is a human being at the point of conception, then the child in the womb deserves all the protections afforded to any one of us at any stage of our development. So that's where I stand on the issue of abolition. I came into this as a part of a lengthy process where initially I was showing up on, I lived in Omaha, Nebraska, showing up at abortion clinics, learning about, quote unquote, the pro-life movement, and learning about it from a gospel-centered standpoint. Would run into guys who held on to the moniker of abolition, understood it, grew in that. Not every aspect of some of the methodology did I agree with, and when I didn't, I said so. But for the most part, I think it's the most biblically consistent position, one that does not allow for any partiality in adjudicating the issues of murder, and it holds everyone in the process properly accountable for what they're doing before a holy God. So as best I can, that's kind of the idea behind abolitionism.
All right, so we'll kick it over to you, Sam. What does it mean to be pro-life? If you even identify with that term, what does that mean?
Yeah. So I can answer that, but if you don't mind, first, I said this to Virgil before this conversation, but when I told my father-in-law about this conversation, this discussion or debate, um, I said, hey, yeah, I'll be having a discussion with Virgil, and he said, isn't that one of your heroes? And I said, yeah, that's because he knows how much I talk about him, how much I admire him, how much I respect him. So if I know this topic can be very just contentious for a lot of people, and who knows, there might be some people on both sides who might be wanting some fight, right? Now, look, if it was a fight, I'm a bigger man, than Virgil.
You have to catch me first, Doc.
You're right about that. You're right about that. So, but no, the point is that there won't be no fight here. This is going to be, me just sharing my disagreements with my uncle or with my older brother in the faith. And I want to do that with love, with humility, with grace towards him, and I know that he will be doing the same with me. So with that in mind, I also want to just read a scripture that every whether it's pro-life or abolitionist or anti-abortion Christian holds dearly, which is Proverbs 24 verse 11, where the God's word says, rescue those who are being taken away to death, hold back those who are stumbling to the slaughter. Both Virgil and I affirm we agree with these words, and we're both in I guess different ways, although mostly similar ways, but some smaller ways, trying to rescue those who are being taken away to the slaughter. And to be honest with you, I wish there were more Christians. Why disagree with abolitionists? If being an abolitionist will mean that some Christians will wake up and be more active in saving preborn babies, then praise God. All right. So abolitionists are not my enemy whatsoever. They're my brothers. They're my allies. We just have some disagreements. So with that in mind, I will share why I disagree with abolitionism. Although I have to explain that by saying that, in a sense, I actually am an abolitionist. All of what Virgil said, I affirm, I agree with. The word abolition really just means, as Virgil said, to abolish an injustice, right? And I want to abolish abortion. Now, the methodology or how I want to approach that might be different. Abolitionists, generally, when they say that, what they really mean is they are immediatist. And what I would say, immediatist only. I am an immediatist too, but like Wilberforce, I will say that immediate abolition is preferred. I prefer that. But unfortunately, the reality of this world, I don't think it's right now possible, at least for this time, right now. So therefore, I am willing to gradually or incrementally produce bills like the heartbeat bill, for example, right, which would say that we're going to protect as many babies as possible, right? That would be those who have a heartbeat. It doesn't mean that we support or want to support or allow the deaths of children who do not have a heartbeat. By no means. It just means that we are trying to establish that already pro-abortion bills already exist. We're trying to not create bills that would lead to death, but we're trying to lessen the number of babies that will die from these abortion laws. So that is my view, and I think my views, actually, to be honest, is really, I think, consistent with Scripture. I believe I'm following a long line of Christians who have had to choose the lesser evil in a society filled with total depravity, right? And I'm following, I'll believe, people like Moses, and I'll explain that later, like Moses, like Esther or Mordecai, or Wilberforce himself. And even more than that, I would say even right now, I'm following the footsteps of a man I really admire, and his name is Virgil Walker. Right. And I will share that, I think choosing the lesser evil is unfortunately something that we can't escape as godly people in a society filled with depravity. So my view is I am willing to save as many babies as possible until I'm able to introduce an abolition bill that would ban all abortion. And also, some pro-life people do not agree with equal protection, or which would be penalizing the mom. But I completely reject that. I support the biblical view that anyone who murders a child or who murders a person should be penalized for that. I think many people in the pro-life movement are wrong when they say this is an unbiblical view that cannot be justified with Scripture. The Bible is very clear on this, that that whoever takes a life, right, should be punished for that. So that would be my view.
Gotcha. So thank you for that, Sam. So Virgil may be at a little bit of an advantage here for today's conversation because you recently just did a similar debate about a week ago. And Virgil, did you get a chance to watch that yourself?
I saw bits and pieces of it, different aspects of it with Sam and our brother Jeff Durbin. In fact, when I saw it was posted, my thought was, man, this debate, I mean, is over. Like I can't think of a more effective communicator on the subject of abolition, particularly than Jeff Durbin. And so I listened to a great deal of it, and then again, I was telling Sam before we got on, you know, I just came from a conference that we did in South Lake, Georgia, the Reformation Conference. It's my schedule has been absolutely crazy, and so I haven't been able to catch everything that's been on, and haven't even been able to catch up with all of Sam. I was literally, as we were coming on, reading. I know Sam had put an article together a while back, had written about this issue and said, you know, reasons why I'm not an abolitionist. So I was literally trying to go through that, make sure that I was up to speed on where he stands on these issues and how we actually differ. So
okay, gotcha. Yeah, it was definitely enjoyable. I was able to catch it myself. I'm going to go ahead and let you kick us off. So from here, just so the chat knows, from here, it's not going to be a formal debate. We're not going to have a timer or anything like that. It's going to be conversation style, just like every debate that we do. And so I'm going to kick it over to you, Virgil, and you can start us off with maybe some of your observations or from Sam's article or from the debate or any of your takeaways that you'd like to ask him about.
Yeah, no, I saw the portion of the debate where it seemed to me that I think Sam was truth be told, I think Sam agrees primarily with us, and perhaps like some, you know, who don't want to necessarily take on a title or a name that's not associated with Scripture, you know, pro-life or abolitionist. You know, I don't necessarily hold to Christian nationalisms, for example. That's not a title or a tag that I hold on to. While I think there are many quote unquote Christian nationalists that if they really began, we had a conversation and didn't necessarily have to take on a moniker of sorts. There's probably 95% of the things that they would say or advocate that I agree with. I just don't call myself a Christian nationalist. I've been a faithful Christian for decades. The sense I get in a lot of what Sam says is that's where he stands, except for as it pertains to the advocacy of bills that are less than abolition. So he mentioned earlier that he would advocate for a particular bill that saves some babies, not all. And while, you know, I understand the language around that, hey, you know, Sam, you're sinning or you're sinful or what have you. I understand the thought process behind that. I disagree with it because I don't think we necessarily have to advocate for bills that create divisions as it pertains to human life. If we truly believe that a human being, is a human being at the point of conception, creating a different category that allows some to be led to the slaughter while protecting others, I see that as absolutely problematic, not necessary, and I would even go so far as to say as to say wicked if you understand what you're doing. I think Sam is different in that he would say, I'm going to go back after those who weren't on that bill. The average pro-lifer is not thinking that. In fact, they're actually trained by poor bills like heartbeat bills. They're trained to see separate categories of human existence because of heartbeat bills. They believe now because of a heartbeat bill that humanity begins at the point of a heartbeat. or humanity begins at the point of someone being able to have feeling or touch or something like that. And I think that's the error that advocating for those kinds of bills creates. But again, I don't think we have to advocate for bills that are less than what Scripture says human life is at the point of conception.
Yeah, I disagree with you. First, I think the reason why, so it's not so much that I'm not willing to take on the abolitionist title. I'm okay with that title. I actually have used that term many times to describe myself. It's actually just abolitionists who said that the immediatist, right, who said I'm not an abolitionist because I don't agree with their views. And you wouldn't believe, or maybe you might, some of the things I've been said. I've been called a degenerate. I've been called worse things by. Now, no, this is not representing all abolitionists, right? But there have been some abolitionists that have said that I'm not a real abolitionist unless I agree with their immediatist view. And again, for those who may not understand, when I say immediatist, I mean that, again, I'm willing to introduce heartbeat bills to save as many babies as possible, right? That's an incremental or pro-life bill. Whereas abolitionists will say the only acceptable bill they would propose or vote for is a bill that would ban all abortion and also penalize women as well, too, generally speaking, right? So
I would say this, Sam, and didn't mean to interrupt you, but I agree with that position.
Yeah.
But the thing that made me smile earlier was when you said people called you this or that. I'm like, they say I'm not black. I don't care what, I don't care what people say. I don't worry about that stuff. So.
Yeah. Which I'm with you. Yeah, I don't really care either. But I'm only saying it as an example to say that for me, it's not so much that I don't want to use that title. I'm just using that as an example to say that other people are saying these things about me, right? And that's why I just say that I'm a pro-life incrementalist. Now, again, I am an abolitionist in the true sense of the word, but right now, the way the term abolitionist is understood by many Christians, they see it as simply if you are someone who is going to support or vote for a bill that will be banning all abortion immediately and also penalizing women. Whereas I'm saying, that's what I want. But I also understand that, unfortunately, in a society, again, being reformed, in a society where total depravity exists, I understand that, unfortunately, I'm going to, as Christ said, that he's sending us out as wolves. That's not wolves. Sorry, as sheep to wolves, and that we should be white as serpents and innocent as doves. I understand that I'm going to have to be shrewd. I'm going to have to be strategical in how I go about doing justice. And unfortunately, there are many times where that is what we have to do, which is, again, choosing the lesser evil. And that's what I am at. That's why I say that I'm an incrementalist or a pro-life person. So it's not so much the title is something that's offensive to me or I'm unwilling to accept. Now, you mentioned also that many pro-life people, maybe most pro-life people, because of incremental bills, have now come to accept that that maybe if a baby has a heartbeat, that's when life begins. I've been in the pro-life movement since 2018, which is now 6 years ago. I was pro-life before that, but in terms of being active, being in organizations and talking to a lot of the people who are my colleagues, I would say that's not accurate. I don't know any true pro-life person who would say that life begins, at a time when an incrementalist bill or pro-life bill, like a heartbeat bill, for example. The pro-life movement affirms that life begins at conception. Again, these bills are not necessarily what we are saying it should be. We're not saying that this is when life begins. We're not saying that this is how it should be going forward. We're saying that, unfortunately, we recognize that the pro-abortion lobby are not going. For example, here in Ohio, look at what happened. The most that could have happened was the heartbeat bill. And even that was considered so radical that now they were able to revoke that through issue 1 and now have abortion on demand up to 9 months. All right. Because, again, unfortunately, even though there was some lobbying, there was some negotiations essentially to say, hey, we want to save as many babies as possible. We know you guys don't want a total ban, but we're going to introduce a heartbeat bill that will save many, many babies, not all, but many, many babies. And even then, there was such blowback to that now any baby every baby in Ohio, sorry, all babies in Ohio do not have protection from by the law. So I think, again, the pro-life movement is not saying that abortion doesn't start out at conception or fertilization. It does start then, but we just know that we have to be wise and strategic in how we go about saving preborn babies.
Yeah, I hear you, but I just don't see that in those who profess to be pro-life. Perhaps those that you're surrounded by in the places and spaces where you are. They understand that from a scientific standpoint, but they're operating as functional pro-choicers as it pertains to the child prior to the heartbeat, right? It's okay to make the choice prior to the heartbeat. Now that we have the heartbeat, that's the hard and fast rule. So functionally, they're operating as pro-choicers when they advocate for heartbeat bills that say it's okay to kill babies that don't yet have a heartbeat. And I'll go further to say, in the minds of the vast majority of people who aren't thinking about these issues substantively and are only looking at headlines or the bill as it's passed as a quote unquote heartbeat bill, the average person is thinking, okay, that's when life begins, and so that's what I'm advocating. I still think it's a poor representation of how people get trained by bills that are less than advocating for life from conception. Because if we truly believe, and I'll stop here, Sam, let you interject. I think if we truly believe that life began at conception, there's no way anyone would say that it would be okay or that we would advocate only for the child who has the heartbeat. There's no way, if they truly believe that was a human being at the point of conception, that they would operate from a standpoint of it hey, we'll save these, not these for now, and we'll wait and see what happens.
It seems like you're suggesting that if we truly believe that these lives, that these children, all children in the womb are preborn children, if we truly believe that, then we would not be willing to propose a bill that would save, again, as many babies as possible, such as the heartbeat bill. Mm-hmm. But then that would mean that someone like myself, right, who hates abortion, who recognizes that that life does begin at conception, then that would mean that I'm being insincere in when I say that I do believe that life begins at conception, and yet I'm willing to support these bills, right? So
I wouldn't say insincere. I wouldn't say. I think you're sincere about your position and advocating for some, not all. And I'm simply saying that if you understand truly life, you would never operate as in a functional way as a pro-choicer would advocate. I don't think it's insincerity that's driving that idea.
But I think that's a standard that isn't universal, right? So, for example, I mentioned. Obvious. Yeah, so I mentioned earlier, for example, that I am following your example and many other Christians' example when it comes to this, right? So, for example, I'm assuming you're going to vote for Donald Trump this election, right?
I haven't decided, but I would have no problem voting for Trump.
Okay, but Trump is so. For example, well, before I get to my question, Trump was the first president to support LGBT ideology. He has come out for the last several years now, been going against. He's really just a pro-abortion candidate right now. I mean, he never mind being pro-life or being an incrementalist. He is a pro-abortion candidate, and yet you recognize that you said that you'd have no problem choosing to vote for him over Biden because you understand that Biden is worse than Trump. But yet you wouldn't believe that your support for Donald Trump is teaching people that you really believe that his views should be correct, right?
Right. Yeah, I think that's a category error to say that a vote for Trump is equivalent to.
I'm not saying it's equivalent.
A bill that where we know will result in 100% death. Like I could, if I voted for Trump, for example, there are other aspects of government that I can appeal to stop Trump from doing whatever he's doing. If I vote for the heartbeat bill, then all of the babies, those who advocate for the the not immediatism, but the what's the word I'm looking for? I was about to say continuationism. those who aren't immediatists like myself, who want who want a gradual approach. There's no gradual approach. Those babies who don't have the heartbeat die. Those are two separate categories. I could fight against Trump in other ways, whereas all of the babies who don't have a heartbeat will die. Those are two different things.
But there are abolitionists who rightly understand that that view is inconsistent, which is why many abolitionists say they will not vote for Trump for that very reason, right? So he's not an abolitionist. He's not even pro-life.
Right.
He's explicitly said that he's not going to support any bill that the Senate would introduce that would be anti-abortion in any capacity. In Arizona, he outright, after the Supreme Court revoked, after the Supreme Court basically reestablished the 1864 bill, he went after it and suggested that he's working with essentially pro-abortion people in Arizona to fight against it, right? So, and he has power. He has power in his. I mean, the whole reason why we've been saying that let's vote for Donald Trump, right, over the last several years is because of his pro-life policies, right? So we're recognizing that he has power. So when he's saying these things, and we're saying that by voting for him, we still have other ways where we can fight against him. Well, the reality is when you're voting for him, right? Again, I'm just using the argument that you were saying that by me voting for a particular or supporting a particular law, right? That's me giving complete support for what it says, right? So then if that's the case, it has to mean the exact same thing for Donald Trump. That if voting for Donald Trump, if we can't say that, well, wait, you're choosing some of the good aspects despite some of the bad things that comes with it, if we can't separate the two, then we can't separate the two when it comes to Donald Trump as well, too, right? So if me voting for a heartbeat bill means that my main goal is not to save as many babies as possible, if it means that I am giving a tacit approval for the murder of children, then it also has to mean, I don't think it's a category error. I think to me that can be a phrase that's used to ignore, I think, I'm not saying it's equivalent, but I'm just saying that there is a similarity there. If it's unjust for me to support an abolitionist or an incremental bill, then it's unjust to support a president who supports LGBT ideology, has placed, I think, at least 2 or 3 gay people or LGBT people into his into office when he was in power. And he's come out to explicitly say that he will not support a pro-life or anti-abortion bill, right? So, and I would imagine, just to make another point, if Donald Trump was not, if his rival wasn't Joe Biden, right? That if, say, for example, if he was against, I don't know, Abraham Lincoln, for example, right? If it was between Abraham Lincoln and Donald Trump, you would say that Abraham Lincoln is clearly the better choice, right? And I think, again, the point is that it's context matters. The situation matters. The motivation matters. Some people might vote for Donald Trump for sinful reasons, but you clearly have righteous reasons for one to vote for Donald Trump. And in the same way, someone can vote for an incremental bill or a heartbeat bill for the wrong motives because they might really believe this is how it should be. That would be sin. But if I'm voting for it because it's trying to save as many babies as possible, I don't think that's sin. I think that is me wanting to save as many babies as possible. And again, I want to rescue those being taken to the slaughter. And until I can introduce an abolitionist bill, I want to introduce anything I can possibly do to hold back babies from the slaughter.
Sure. I think as it really, again, I still appeal to the fact that those two things are not equivalent. Babies and heartbeat bills, knowing that a baby is going to die and advocating for a policy prescription that allows that to take place for a longer period of time is very different than voting for Donald Trump. And as it pertains to the issue of abortion, Roe v. Wade is no more. The federal impact of even Donald Trump's voice on this issue is muted. I mean, to a tremendous degree. This issue now goes to states, and we're having to have this battle everywhere. I think, Scripture. I would point to Scripture that talks about Proverbs 17:15, where it says, "He who justifies the wicked and he who condemns the righteous are both like an abomination to the Lord. When we think about the idea of advocating for what we know is wicked, there's a difference between what we know is wicked, which is the killing of a human life, and what we believe to be wicked in policy prescriptions that we can do something about. I think those are two different categories that I would look at it and say, one we can be sure about, the other we don't know, for, one way or another.
But I don't. So if I could explain why I think it is very much equivalent, and I think that, and even if you don't think it's the same degree, I think that the argument holds.
It's definitely not to the same degree, but I would argue they're not equivalent.
Well, I'll share why. So it seems like what you're saying is that if an unjust politician introduces a bill,
because there would be no politician is just.
But if a unjust politician, in terms of their views, right, on abortion, for example, introduces a bill that's unjust, and I support that bill, you're saying that essentially I would be in sin. But if that politician has told you what he's going to do, that he's about to introduce an unjust bill, but then you vote for him because it's better than the other person, then that's not the same thing. I don't understand how it's not the same thing, because either way, you if anything, I might say maybe it's even worse, because you're putting that politician into power to introduce an unjust bill. So how is that not unjust in of itself, according to your reasoning?
One is I still have a voice that and an access to people who can help to create a different decision than what that politician says he's going to support. In the instance of voting for a policy that I know beyond the shadow of a doubt will lead to the destruction of human life, that's a totally different situation.
But again, that unjust politician will introduce a bill that some will vote for, which will lead to the end of some people's lives. But on top of that, even if I vote for the heartbeat bill, for example, as you know, I'm still going out to the streets saving babies. I'm still advocating for a better law as well. So what you're saying, I can still do the exact same thing. So I don't see the difference.
No, I agree with you there that as you're doing the exact same thing, I'd have no problem. But you are not. You are rare. I think if I remember, Jeff Durbin called you a unicorn, and the truth be told is that's the reality, because the if you look out in culture, society, everywhere you turn, the pro-life industry is not where you are. I mean, they are not standing on the same principled position that you're standing on, Sammy.
But sir, I actually think that's wrong. I think there are many people in the pro-life movement who don't agree with me when it comes to penalty or penology, right? Mm-hmm. But when it comes to what we've just talked about, when it comes to voting for pro-life politicians or the choosing the lesser evil, when it comes to because the pro-life movement, again, I learned the vast majority of what I believe comes from what I learned from the pro-life movement. So when it comes to
you mean in Canada? Like, where are you talking about?
Canada. I've
never met these people, and I've been around for a long time.
But you see, I think this is one of the things.
You said I was old. You said I was old.
But I think this is part of the issue. I think the abolitionist movement is not as informed as they think they are. I say that, believe me, I have 2 feet both with many abolitionists. I have 1 foot in the abolitionist camp in a sense, because they are my brothers, many of them, and then I'm also part of the pro-life movement. So I'm telling you that I am not as rare as you guys say I am. I actually think my views everything. Sorry if I may say this. Everything I've been saying right now when it comes to voting for heartbeat bills, for example, while still wanting a better laws. This is just standard pro-life movement views. This is not new. Now, the difference is the penology aspect. But other than that, my views are very mainstream when it comes to the idea that, again, I want to introduce a heartbeat bill and save as many babies as possible, while advocating that is not enough, while advocating that we need to do more, while advocating that we should have better bills, we should be going to Planned Parenthood or anywhere else we can and saving babies. Right? The pro-life movement, we say that there's 3 arms. There's a pastoral aspect, there is the political aspect, and there's the prophetic aspect. So these 3 things are all dealing with all the different ways to save babies. So what I'm saying is not new. I'm not a unicorn whatsoever. I mean, I kind of wish I I was maybe, but I'm really not.
I do
I'm
have
very much a standard pro-life Christian.
I do have a clarifying question, so we can keep going back and talking in circles here. Virgil, what is your definition of the pro-life movement, and why do you think it contradicts Sam?
Well, I mean, I see it in legislative halls everywhere we turn, whether it's here in Georgia, whether it's Alabama, the kinds of legislation, the spaces and places where legislation is taking place, as it relates to equal protection, whether there's penalty that is attached to the bill or not, pro-lifers are against it. They've demonstrated very effectively that they do not want every from the ERLC to those who advocate for pro-life positions, everywhere. They're the ones that are killing the bills around the country that advocate for what people like my brother Sam says that they actually want, which is equal protection for babies in the womb. And so that's what's happening. That's why I say that Sam's position, while again, he may be surrounded by people who think the way he does, but what we're seeing demonstrated play out in real time, that's not what's happening.
If I can,
So-
Sam, I'm just going to jump in here real
Yeah.
quick. So for you guys in the chat, it's already been 45 minutes, believe it or not.
Oh, wow.
We're going to.
Wow.
I have. Wow.
Can you believe
Okay.
it? So in about 5 minutes here, we're going to take questions from the chat. So you guys, like I mentioned earlier, I expect quite a few questions. And so we are going to prioritize channel members and super chats and things of that nature. So you guys can go ahead and start asking those questions in the chat. And then, Sam, I'm going to kick it back over to you so that you can respond to what Virgil just said while we're waiting.
I'm trying to remember what he said. Yeah. Well, I think when I take issue a little bit with how you say it? I can't even say the word. ERLC, I think, being pro-life. I think there are many people in the organization who are truly pro-life, I'm sure. Yeah. But I would say that they have done some things that are just not pro-life whatsoever. So look, part of the issues that there are people out there who call themselves pro-life people who are not. And then there are people who say they're abolitionists who are not abolitionists as well too. So I think I'm not in any way associated with the ERLC.
But these are massive organizations that have tremendous
I understand that, right? But there are other people. So for example, you even have secular or Catholic groups like Live Action, who everything I'm saying here they would agree with. You have Scott Klusendorf, right? You have Created Equal here in Ohio. You have CCBR, my friends there in Canada, who are my views, everything I've been saying so far, they would agree with. So these are mainstream pro-life people. So the ERLC, again, that's the SBC, and they've been compromised on a number of different things, right? So I think they are a little. I think they're not a standard for, unfortunately, even true biblical justice, period. Never mind that, right? But I don't want to kind of deviate from that, from this topic. But again, my views are really not the norm. I'm sure anybody here who is pro-life, who is, hearing my words, they would say, yeah, this is what I believe as well. Now, again, when it comes to penology, many Christians have not thought it through. And some pro-life people disagree with me when it comes to that. That I've been saying that for a long time. I've been trying to convince as many as I can who are in my camp to rethink their views on that. But everything else I've been saying, it's really truly just a pro-life mainstream view. But one question I'll ask, I didn't realize that we were it had been 45 minutes already. But so abolitionists say that the core reason why they would not support a heartbeat bill, right? Which, and by the way, before I go further, I want to say that since Roe v. Wade, there have been 32,000 babies saved because of pro-life bills. And this is a fact. This is even a circular university that said this. This is a fact that 32,000 babies have been saved annually, I should say, since Roe v. Wade. I rejoice in that. I praise God for that. Is that enough? Absolutely not. But I praise God that there are 32,000 more babies alive because of pro-life bills. I rejoice in that. And I think abolitionists should rejoice in that too. But what I want to ask is that the abolitionists or the immediatists, say that the reason why they will not support a heartbeat bill, for example, is because it's unjust, because they claim it's partiality. I don't think it is. We can get to that in a second, but they say it's unjust. Well, if that's the case, would you agree that that death penalty is the just penalty for anyone who takes a life, anyone who murders a child? Would you agree with that?
If that's where, I mean, based upon the law of the land, sure. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. I want to go back to I want to go back to something you said, Sam. First of all, because you said.
May I finish my question first?
I think it's the crux of the issue, and that's this: that you said how many babies you said were saved as a result
32,000 babies annually.
Yeah, I just reject that. I absolutely reject that, and here's why.
You don't think that's true? Is that what you're saying?
No. I didn't say it was true. I think we're putting the emphasis on the wrong thing, which is emblematic of why. I think why pro-lifers like yourself think that heartbeat bills are so important. You've placed the emphasis on due directly in result to a heartbeat bill. And I would argue it's only due to the sovereignty of God in acting on behalf of these babies and stopping their deaths. And I think you would agree with that. I believe you would agree with that.
Yeah, but
I think you would agree with the fact
that
God's sovereignty.
But as we know that God's sovereignty does not negate our responsibility, right?
No, it does not.
So if I can finish my question though, right? My question was going to be that the abolitionists say that the reason why you reject heartbeat bills, for example, is because you claim it's unjust, right? So then you mentioned that
babies who died are not experiencing justice.
So I would say to your answer when I asked you if you believe that death penalty is the just punishment, the just penalty for murderers, including people who have abortions, then it says because of the law of the land. I would say, well, it's because of scripture, right? The Bible says that whoever murders should receive the death penalty. Sure. So since that is biblical justice, of course, is the only true justice, right? Because of that. Well, in New York, for example, if you introduce an abolitionist bill if you introduce a bill that would ban all abortion, including penalizing women, well, because of the nature of their system there, they have rejected the death penalty for murderers. So then if you introduce an abolitionist bill, it will not lead to a just outcome. It won't, according to the biblical standard. Right. So then, therefore, if you want true justice, shouldn't you first reform the system in New York so that when you do promote or vote for or support an abolitionist bill there, and if it were to pass, then it would actually lead to a real just outcome. So then how come? So I guess I'll put it this way: would you support first reforming before you introduce anything in New York or anywhere else where you can't have death penalty for murderers? Would you support reforming the system first before then you can introduce an abolitionist bill? Because right now it's not happening whatsoever. So any bill right now for an abolitionist, if it were to pass, it wouldn't really lead to a just outcome. So would you first support that?
Yeah. Before I answer that, I would simply say I think the idea that every woman who is who's in a process of an abortion or is adjudicated for the murder of her child, I think that's going to go through a legal process.
Of course.
And there may be some aspect of the situation that does not lend itself to be adjudicated as her life should be taken. And in that instance, whatever those issues were, it would leave the door open for less than her death.
Just to clarify,
I really want Virgil to be able to finish his thought. Please go ahead, Virgil.
Okay.
There's a process that takes place to where that's adjudicated. It's not a 1-for-1. It's not a she's murdered. A baby has been murdered. This woman deserves to die, and no one's advocating for that. And so it would not be a situation where I would first have to go fix the laws as it relates to murder before then going and doing the other, because that's just not how that process would need to work.
That's not what I'm talking about, though. So I'm not saying that every single woman who has an abortion or a man who
Right.
is involved in abortion should receive death penalty. That's not what I'm saying. Of course, just as it is right now in our system, you have third degree, you have manslaughter, you have second degree, you have first. Yeah, so I'm referring to first degree murder, right? In New York, that would not bring about a just outcome. So then my point is this: that if it's unjust to support an incrementalist bill like the heartbeat bill because it's unjust. Right. Well, by nature, your bill will also not produce a just outcome. So to be consistent, you would have to work on the entire system itself. You would have to make sure that you have a bill that would actually lead to the death penalty for some women. Otherwise, it's not just. Go ahead. If I can finish, which is why, for example, which is why in Arizona, for example, when they reverted to the 1864 bill, which led to only maximum penalty for even first degree murder, would have been 2 to 5 years. You have many abolitionists who said actually when the Democrats introduced bills that would revoke the 1864 bill, some abolitionists said they would actually support that Democratic bill because they believe that the bill in 1864 is actually unjust. Right. So would you agree with those abolitionists that since it's unjust, right, even if it would ban all abortion, but it would only lead to a maximum penalty of 5 years, would you agree with those abolitionists that is unjust?
It would be unjust if it were not equal weights and measures for the same crime.
So would you support it?
It would be an unjust bill if it carved out some level of partiality for the mother. Absolutely. I would not support a bill that would advocate for partiality as it pertains to how it's adjudicated, the aspect of penalty. Any carve out for that should not be something that we support. And let me explain. Let me explain why. The reason is because I totally trust God's sovereignty. I totally believe that I can advocate for just laws, even in that instance, and rely on God's sovereignty to save those he chooses to save. Absolutely. And so it doesn't require me to be pragmatic in my approach about the law so that I could save some and not all. I don't subscribe to the idea that I care about babies more than God does. And I don't believe you feel that way either. I simply don't need to. I'm not required to advocate for a law that carves out partiality in its penalty phase for the mere purpose of appeasing either my own conscience or the idea that some babies are saved, or give any glory to any pro-life organization as being responsible for saving the lives of 13,000 babies, because only God alone should be glorified in that.
So just to kind of go back to what you were saying earlier, End Abortion Now, where obviously Jeff Durbin's End Abortion Now, they supported the 1864 bill, but you're saying that you disagree. So not 1864 bill, but that law, but that you would say that it's unjust, so you wouldn't support it. Right.
No, I'll be honest. I'll be honest with you, Sam. I don't know enough about it to speak intelligently. I simply, as it pertains to that particular bill, what I am saying is, let me finish this and I'll stop.
Okay.
What I am saying is, any carve out for partiality as it relates to the adjudication of a bill, I would not support. If someone could explain to me it's how biblical it is or what have you, and that it doesn't violate partiality, then I could support that. I don't know enough about the particular bill that you mentioned to speak intelligently about it.
Well, yeah. So what I
go ahead,
hello?
Sam.
Yeah. What I was trying to say was, is that abolitionists are very inconsistent on this issue. When it comes to, for example, many of them anyways, voting for Donald Trump, or again, someone who is pro-abortion, but then is justified with with different reasoning. But when it comes to voting for a lesser evil, when it comes to a heartbeat bill, abolitionists have a different view on that. I think ironically that's actually partiality on pro-life people versus voting for people who are radically pro-abortion, unfortunately, like Donald Trump is headed towards. But I'll say this too. You mentioned that you trust God's sovereignty. I do as well too. I know you mentioned that.
I know you do.
But but I would say that the one person who trusts in God's sovereignty more than us is God Himself. And yet in Matthew, Christ said that because of the hardness of the people's hearts, God allowed for people to have a certificate of divorce. Right now, God hates divorce, but because of their hearts, He allowed for that to happen. How is that different when a pro-life person like myself, an incrementalist, abolitionist, whatever like myself, says, because of the wickedness of people's hearts, because of the depravity in people's hearts, because of their hardness of heart, I am willing to allow for a heartbeat bill for that very reason? How is that different?
Because God is sovereign. I mean, he can decide.
Hold on, let Virgil finish.
He can decide to do what he wills as it relates to divorce, and no one's lost their lives as a result. However, that does not give us the justification to go and then advocate for allowing certain people, human beings created in His image, to be aborted while we wait for the right circumstances to advocate on their behalf. That's a bad example.
All right, guys. Actually, I think
hold on.
I think it's a bad answer.
I totally want to respect the people who are asking questions in the chat. And honestly, this discussion is kind of talking about inconsistencies, and all of us can pick apart the inconsistencies on both views here. It's not really debating the topic at hand. So, Ryan, do you want to move to some of the super chats here?
Yeah, sure. And thank you guys. I appreciate you guys going back and forth, and I would love to continue to listen to you guys question and answer each other. But like Nick said, I want to respect your guys' time, and I want to respect the time of the audience. So
thank you, guys.
The first one we're going to get into is for Sam, and this is from Abolitionist. Thank you for that super chat. Sam, I think that you could probably guess where this person stands based on their screen name, Abolitionist. But they're saying, do you have an article or public post that you supported one single abolition bill in writing and exposed the legislator that killed the bill?
Sorry, repeat that question.
Sure.
Do I have an article on what?
It says, do you have an article or a public post that you have supported one single abolition bill in writing? And then they're further asking, did you expose the legislator that killed the bill?
Did I expose? Oh, I see what they're asking now. Okay. So do I have, I don't know. I don't think I have an article on that, but have I had a tweet about it? I don't know. I know that I support abolitionist bills. Of course I do. I know that. I've mentioned that before. Now, I don't only support them. I support other bills as well. But do I have a tweet on that? I don't know as well. I mean, I don't have tweets on a lot of things. Now, I think the second question was, have I exposed who would have killed them? I'm assuming what they're saying is that the pro-life people have killed some abolitionist bills. I've on a record talking about how stupid that is. So there's tweets on that. So I think that's answered the question.
Okay.
But but sorry, I don't know what the format is if you want to ask more questions or if
that was it. I appreciate your answer, Sam. And thank you again for that super chat and question, Abolitionists. This one's a little bit more off topic, and chat, I just want to apologize to you guys. Like we might have mentioned earlier on, we just moved into this studio, so not everything is set up yet. So we're not going to be able to actually show your questions on the screen. I apologize for that. So we're just going to read your name and the question. This one is for you, Virgil, and this is a hard hitter, and it's from the AW Pink Panther. They say, Virgil, where can we get a G3 coffee mug?
Go to g3min.org shop, I think. Yeah.
Okay. All right. There you go. g3min.org/shop. All right. So I did want to mention to the chat. I don't know if I can say this yet, but we do know we are getting called to have T. Russell Hunter on to debate, and we are working on something. We're not going to say who it's against or who it's with, but
Yeah.
T. Russell has been on the channel before. I see you in the chat as well, my friend. We are working on something to get him on the channel for a chat.
Yeah, for sure. We do have that in the works. But here today, we have Virgil and Sam. And if it's okay, Sam, I have a personal question. Is that cool?
Yeah.
I've been debating these two topics for a long time, and you mentioned inconsistencies several times. So I just kind of want to throw a question your way. And I do have a question for Virgil as well as the discussion moves forward. I don't want the chat to think that I'm showing favoritism here. But you talked about inconsistencies. What if we took an incremental position on any other crime? What if we said, the hearts of man are so wicked that we're just going to go ahead and say that murderers are so rampant, we need to take an incremental approach and try to limit those to save as many people as possible? Or what if we applied that logic to any other crime outside of abortion? Would you think that's consistent?
Yeah, I'm glad you're asking that question. First, if I may say something, actually, I'll answer your question. It was said earlier that I think maybe inconsistencies can be picked apart from every view. I'm actually don't agree with that. I think the reason why I was addressing, I believe, Virgil's inconsistencies is because it exposes, I think how some of the unbiblical things that he is saying, and I think that the standard would not apply to even some of the biblical figures that we respect, and I will get to that in a second. But to answer your question, this is so important. I'm so glad you asked this. The abolitionist movement oftentimes, I think, ignores the realities of the context. Pro-life people are not introducing abortion laws in a vacuum. That's not what's happening. These laws already exist. You already have laws where abortion is legal, right? So what's happening here is we are having incremental policies to lessen these laws, right? That's what we're trying to do. Now, it would be absolutely evil of anyone to introduce a bill on anything that does not already exist. So, for example, I think you're asking me, since murder is rampant, should we just, I think, make it legal? I think that's what you're asking. Well, no, that wouldn't be incrementalism. That would be just pure evil. Incrementalism is about lessening evil laws until we're able to abolish it. And it's not different. Wilberforce did the exact same thing. Wilberforce supported the Dublin Act, which reduced the number of slaves on ships. Or he supported the Foreign Slave Trade Act, which basically said that, look, until we can ban the slave trade, you, if you're a British citizen, you can continue to do, sell slaves elsewhere, just not on British land. He also introduced the Slave Trade Act, which people do not know actually what the bill says, which is shocking, including, unfortunately, actually abolitionists, because the bill would not meet their standard. The bill allowed for something called the apprenticeship clause, which essentially allowed for the slave trade to continue. Again, Wilberforce himself says he was forced to do this. He had no choice. He allowed for the slave trade to continue in Sierra Leone, right? And he got some pushback from some people, but he did the right thing because he realized that it was necessary in order to ban the slave trade and slavery altogether, right? I'm sure Wilberforce is thankful for the Slave Trade Act, all right? But the reality is that is an incrementalist bill. So again, it's very different to say that let's lessen the reality of these evil laws through incremental policies, and then introducing a bill that would actually create these evil laws.
Gotcha. Thank you for that answer, Sam. We are going to keep it rolling here. I gotta say,
I am curious. Does Virgil have a response to that before we move on?
Okay.
I wrote down some things. It's fine.
Okay. All right. We can get back to it if somebody else brings it back up in the chat. But we are going to keep rolling on. And I was going to say that it seems like abolitionists are really representing in the chat. So we got quite a few questions for Sam. The next one is from Bradley Pierce. Bradley, thank you for that super chat.
Sorry, I laughed because Bradley's a friend. I've had this
okay.
talk with him.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
he says, Sam, in supporting an end that we believe is good, are we allowed to do something that God forbids us to do?
No. And so no, but I don't think God is forbidding us to save as many babies as possible through an incrementalist bill.
Okay.
And look, if I can say more to that. So, for example, this is something that I think, again, abolitionists tend to ignore. The reality is, I already mentioned Moses, right? But I'll give you another one. In the book of Esther, Haman convinced the king of Persia to introduce a genocidal bill, right? I'm sure we're all familiar with this. A decree, I should say, a decree that was aimed at just wiping out all Jews in the land. And in Esther 8, it says that Mordecai introduced with Esther and the king, the king blessed him that Mordecai introduced a decree that would have, that actually did give the Jews self-defense. It did not abolish that existing decree. It just incrementally gave them the power to reduce the lives that would be killed from that decree through the self-defense. This is not new, right? God, in the book of Esther, Mordecai is a hero. He's a righteous man. He's a godly man. The same way that Moses is a godly man, even though, again, God says that because of the hardness of people's hearts, God allowed them to have a certificate of divorce. This is not new. So by no means should we do evil. But the reality is that by reducing evil, by restricting evil until we can abolish it, that is not unjust.
Gotcha. And guys, like I said, if you guys have a question for Virgil, please make sure to ask. But I would say like 99.9% are for Sam. So
that's
Sam,
all right. That's all right.
I'm gonna have you field one more. I think we didn't get a super for this one, but this seems to be by far the most repeated question in the chat. We have lots of people asking you essentially, are you positive that you have the history right when it comes to Wilberforce? And they're saying that he probably wasn't incrementalist. So how sure are you that you have that part right?
I am 150% sure. That is a myth that I think, frankly, a lot of abolitionists believe. Some people have been saying this, and oftentimes they have the same source. That, well, this person said this. I've read his books on the slave trade and slavery. I am a Wilberforce massive fan. I've read this stuff. I've read his bills. He supported the Durbin Act. He supported the Foreign Slave Trade Act. His slave trade bill very clearly allows for the slave trade to continue. And not just that, by the way, he also explicitly says the fine for man stealing, which is a slave trade, the penalty should be a fine. Not death penalty, by the way, which biblically that should be the requirement. It was a fine. I've been reading Wilberforce for a number of years. He's one of my heroes. I'm absolutely sure about this. I think one of the great problems right now when it comes to Christians in ending injustice is that we are very ignorant about Wilberforce. We don't know actually what he stood for. So absolutely, again, what he said before was he prefers abolition, but again, he prefers it. That's not the only option. Unlike what I think a lot of immediatists on abortion today claim that it should be.
Gotcha. Virgil, I'm going to kick it over to you. Do you have any thoughts or responses to some of what Sam has said?
No, I think, again, I respect my dear brother. I do. I think that in his zeal, I think he again, just an admonition. You often said like abolitionists and immediatists, and then made some very general comments about their ignorance or lack of study. I know that that's not true. In that many of them are studied, many of them are students, in the same way that Sam, you and I are. And so out of respect to the abundance of them, if you have a specific example where someone has said something, I totally understand it. My heart goes out to I know that 99% of the responses are aimed at you, because most of us lean into the abolitionist position, and because of my love for you, and I do not want to see you in a position of being ostracized or looked upon with angst. in ways that aren't necessary, my encouragement to you would just be thinking about overgeneralizing statements that may not cover everyone, especially when you say they're ignorant or they're not students of Wilberforce. Many of these people have studied some of the same things.
I think it's a bit unfair, sir. That's not what I said. What I said was, I think I said a lot of Christians today are ignorant when it comes to Wilberforce. I was until several years ago. So I wasn't saying abolitionists. And I did say that abolitionists have been wrong on this, and I think they believe this. But I think I was saying afterward, I was speaking generally, right? And the reason why I'm saying that is because a lot of abolitionists, when I mention this comes up, and then when I share with them, they say, "Oh, they didn't know this." So I'm not saying as an insult by any means. I'm just saying that there is ignorance, and using the word ignorance is not an insult. I'm just saying that there is a lack of knowledge when it comes to this issue, right? So Wilberforce is someone that, again, I think all people, a lot of pro-life people, are also ignorant about. I mean, I can just tell you today, there's someone today who's a pro-life person that I really admire. That I gave him some information about Wilberforce, and he was very surprised. He didn't know this, right? So I think, again, this is applicable to all of us, not just abolitionists, right? But I think, again, since abolitionists are oftentimes the people who say that, well, again, we're going to call ourselves abolitionists because we agree with Wilberforce, to me, you have more of a responsibility to understand what he really stood for. So when there is ignorance on that, I think it's important to call that out.
All right. We only have time for one or two more questions. We have one that's, again, for you, Sam. And they're asking if this is from Abolitionist again. And they're asking if you're open to debating T. Russell Hunter.
No, I'm not. I won't say more other than, I've said publicly there are very few people I'm willing to talk to on a number of things, and there are reasons why I'm not willing to do that, and I won't. Out of love for him, I don't want to share that. He and I have talked before, and there's wisdom, I think. I love him as a brother, but there's wisdom in why I say, no, I'm not interested in doing that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I appreciate that answer. And Rachel, thank you as well. Rachel Berkey, thank you for that super chat. Unfortunately, it is the same question that just got asked.
And that's okay. That's all right. I'm sure some will be disappointed in that, but not that I'm the best representative of a pro-life apologist necessarily. But no. I know some people have mentioned that before, but I really am not. I love I'll just say this. I don't want to say too much, but I love Bradley Pierce. I enjoyed. I had to talk with him about this very issue in the past. I love the man. He's a dear brother. When I met him in person, I think I gave him a hug. I love the man. I love Virgil Walker. I love a lot of abolitionists that I'm willing to talk to, but I think there are many people that I'm just not willing to do so out of wisdom. And that's true for some pro-life people too. I will not talk to some pro-life people as well too, out of wisdom as well. So that'll be it. But if I may ask, I know Virgil's not getting receiving any questions right now. So may I ask him a question?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So
I'm not answering any questions. I'm out of love for you, out of care for you. I'm just not answering. I'm done. You know, I want to say more, but I won't say any more for now. I'm just gonna kind of keep it.
Oh man, you're that was good. That was good. So, you know, I've asked you a few questions, now, and I don't think I received a sufficient answer, but I think this is a question in terms of what you said about partiality, about that a heartbeat bill is partiality. I disagree with that. I don't think it is at all. But I'll ask you this question to kind of address that. So in Israel, obviously, you know what was going on with Hamas. Hamas, obviously, with the terrorism attacks, with the terrorist attack against Israel and the ongoing war and everything, including that, they've also captured 252 Israeli, and Israel has been able to negotiate the rescue of 112 of the hostages. Most of them are actually all of them are children and women. Let's suppose that, and this is very likely what was the case. Obviously, Hamas did not want to give any of them away, right? Obviously, Israel wanted to rescue all of the people, including the men. Is it partiality? And I want to ask you, depending on your answer, if I may be able to ask you a follow-up question, because this is intentional. Is Is it partiality, right? Based on your rejection of the heartbeat bill, is it partiality for Israel to prioritize women and children over the men?
Yeah, I think I heard you ask Jeff Durbin this same question, and I think my response would be very similar in that men are always called to sacrifice on behalf of women and children, and the issue here again, I know you reject the idea that these are category errors, but we're to protect the least of these, and that being an infant in the womb, and infant in the womb, we're going to protect an infant in the womb and not protect an infant in the womb. Those are equal weights and measures on the infant in the womb. There's a different set of categories for women, children, and the men, as it relates to who's going to be sacrificed for the other. And so I understand that in for you this is a sinful partiality issue. For me, I have categories for these things that allow me to maintain consistency. So
Yeah, but I think those are categories that how do I say this those are categories that I think are exactly the same reasoning that I have. But if I may,
it's men, women, and children. Those are different categories who are based upon even Scripture have a different role and responsibility. Men's responsibility to protect women and children.
But I had a feeling that you might say that I disagree with you, because I agree with you that they should be prioritized. And I would make the argument that we should prioritize anyone we're willing to save as well. But again, in the womb. But regardless of that, I had a feeling you might say that. So I'll ask the same question, but in a different way. Let's suppose they were all women and children, right? Let's suppose it was the 252 were all women and children. And then Hamas says, we will not give any of them to you. But then maybe they'll say, well, maybe we might give you 112 of them. Maybe, but not all. Again, they're all women and children. Should Israel refuse that offer based on partiality? Because in this case, they're all women and children. Should they be refused?
Yeah, I would not negotiate with terrorists. I'd go in and take them all out.
So again, this is a hypothetical situation.
Right.
Hold on. Sorry, if I may say this, where again,
but the heartbeat bill is not a hypothetical.
But hold on. But that's just, again, the whole point of a hypothetical question is to expose, I think, again, inconsistencies, to expose that you don't have ground. But if I may say this, right? So just to be clear, you're saying that Israel is unjust, right? If in this scenario, again, if in the scenario where they were negotiating with the terrorists and they were negotiating to rescue the 112 women and children, you would say that is unjust, that is partiality. Is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying is that all of us, Sam, operate in inconsistencies. All of us.
But, sir,
all of us. And the standard is not whether someone operates in an inconsistency or not. It's are we advocating for something that is unjust, not an unjust hypothetical, but an unjust reality. And the unjust reality that I'm talking about are heartbeat bills. That is unjust.
All right, guys. So I know we're going to be speaking in circles here, respectfully, and we're not really discussing abolition or pro-life. We're kind of moving off topic here. And I know Virgil has a hard stop, so I just want to respect his time. Is it okay, guys, that we conclude this discussion? We'll be happy to invite you for a part 2 if you like. Obviously, this is a hot button issue here, and we respect the both of you. And Virgil, I know you do have a hard stop, so I want to respect you here. Are we good to close this out?
Yeah.
Okay. So, guys, listen, I hope you enjoyed this discussion. This discussion, I hope, was fruitful for you and edifying for you. And we will have more discussions just like this one. In fact, in just a few short weeks, we will have a debate on something different. I'm not going to spoil it for you. But if you are not a part of Dinger Nation, then I want to encourage you to go online and search at Bibledingers across the board. I promise you, we are the one and only Bibledingers. There is no one that has that name. Go on Facebook, go on X, go on whatever platform you want, and you could search at Bibledingers. And while you're there,
just give me the likes, don't pass and scroll.
Don't pass and scroll. Hit that like button, hit subscribe, hit follow, and most importantly, where's my bell? Ding on. And I know Ryan wants to close this out with a few more points.
I just wanted to give Sam and Virgil some last words here. So Sam, we're going to kick it over to you first, and if you can, if this is people's first time hearing from you, can you just let us know where they can find your work and a little bit more about you?
Yeah. They can follow me on my blog at slowtowrite.com. They can follow me on social media also at slowtowrite. I've enjoyed this conversation. There's more I want to say, but I think people can follow me and they can hear more of my views on this.
Yeah, for sure. It seems like, I mean, it's already been an hour and a half, but it seems like we're just sort of skimming the surface here. So what are you going to do? Virgil, I'm going to kick it over to you as well to tell us about anything you got upcoming here.
Upcoming October 3rd through the 5th, join me in Oklahoma City for a G3 conference there, the Cessationist Conference. Would love for you to be a part of that. I've invited Sam. I told him, depend upon how nicely he treated me, I was going to take care of his tickets, but I don't y'all vote. Put a 1 in the chat if I should help him out. Put a 2 in the chat if I should cut him off.
Right.
Hold on here. This is abolitionists are here. So I know the answer. So this is not good. This is not good.
No, listen, I will always take care of my brother Sam. So he doesn't have to worry about that. He's got my personal cell number. He knows what's up. But that said, you can find me at g3men.org. You can find me on Twitter, on all your social media platforms. I'm easily found. You guys can check me out there.
Awesome. Yeah, and just for one last point in regard to cessationism specifically, Ryan and I have had multiple discussions about the spiritual gifts. We had a discussion with Mike Riccardi and Phil Johnson about cessationism. We had a conversation with Ruslan about continuationism. And Ryan and I and Mark, when he's here, we will continue to do a deep dive in the Bible to discuss each and every spiritual gift one at a time. So if you liked these debate-like conversations and you would like to see us go topic by topic through spiritual gifts, please continue to tune in to the rest of our episodes that we will have moving forward. Ryan, you want to close us out?
Yeah, sure. One interesting video that we just did regarding cessationism. And by the way, you can get a discount if you use code G3BD for the Cessationist Conference. That's just a little plug there.
Yes.
We actually, just this past weekend, we had a person who claims the gift of prophecy here in studio, and we were pressing him on the gift of prophecy. So if you guys haven't watched that yet, I think that you will enjoy that. But that's it, guys. Thank you, Virgil. Thank you, Sam. Love you guys. Thank you, chat. You guys are the MVP. Ding on.
Ding on.